Today we're going to explore a story of quiet, profound endurance. We're looking at a time before all the headlines in the history books were written, a time that was really measured in generations, not just years. This is the story of the Gambia, a nation in waiting.
Just think about that for a second. Before the very idea of national freedom was something you could actually put a name to, before it was a goal you could openly fight for, it existed as something much deeper, almost like an instinct, a feeling buried deep in the soul of a people. And before all the symbols we associate with a country, the anthems, the borders, the flags, before any of that could even be dreamed of, there was just the land and there were the people. A flag, well, that's kind of the finish line, isn't it? It's a declaration. But the journey to get there, it starts a long, long time before that, usually in silence.
This one sentence, it just gets right to the heart of the whole story. And this wasn't some kind of passive, empty waiting. Not at all. It was a time of holding on, of preserving who you are. You could almost think of it as a long, deep breath, right before the dawn.
So what did this waiting actually look like in day-to-day life? What was the real texture of this long twilight? I mean, history didn't just stop. Life itself was unfolding, every single day, season by season.
And this is so crucial to understand. This wasn't just a brief chapter in a history book. For so many people, this was the only reality they ever knew. A world where the big decisions were being made thousands of miles away. It was simply the backdrop they were born into.
So much of life was anchored right there in the earth. The rhythms of planting and harvesting, that deep, unbreakable connection to the soil that fed them, these things were the constants. This work was way more than just about survival. It was a connection to their home, to their ancestors, that no foreign power could ever really take away.
And life, well, it quite literally flowed along the Gambia River. It was the nation's artery, a bustling channel for trade, for news, and for community. Life along its banks just kept going with this incredible, vibrant energy all its own.
And this gets to the very soul of the people. Because while the external rules could be controlled from afar, their internal life, their faith, their families, their traditions, that remained a sanctuary. In here, the core of their identity was fiercely guarded and kept alive.
And all of that brings us to the central tension of this whole era. You see, there's a huge difference between being ruled and being truly conquered.
And this is the absolute key. You can administer a territory, you can impose your laws, you can govern from a distance, but what you can't do is command a spirit. The essence of the Gambian people, their identity, their dignity, that stayed their own. It was a quiet but absolutely unshakable defiance.
So what happens to an unconquered spirit? Where does it put all its hope? Well, it channels it into a dream of a different kind of future, one of self-determination. But this wasn't a dream you could shout from the rooftops. It had to be protected, kept safe. And this is how they did it. Hope wasn't something passed down in official documents. No, it was passed on in quiet conversations, in the lyrics of a song, in the stories told to children. It was literally woven into the fabric of the culture, like a secret promise shared from one generation to the next, just waiting for its moment to arrive.
And that really is the final crucial question we're left with. A whisper is a powerful thing, but it's also a sign of pressure building up. And eventually, that pressure has to be released. That quiet dream has to find its voice and finally learn to speak its own name out loud.
On a single incredible night, a moment frozen in time right on the edge of history as an entire country just waits to be born as an independent nation. So let's try to imagine what that must have felt like.
And it really all starts with this, a specific date and this incredibly powerful statement: no one slept. And that's not just some poetic line. It was a literal collective truth. Can you even imagine that? An entire nation awake, together, just waiting. It sets this urgent, almost electric scene for everything that's about to happen.
And you have to understand, this feeling, it wasn't just in the capital city. No way. This was everywhere. From Banjul, right on the Atlantic coast, all the way up the river to Basse, deep in the country's heart. It was a truly shared experience. The whole nation connected by this one silent, watchful night.
So what was the atmosphere like? Well, that's what's so fascinating. This wasn't some big, loud party. Not yet, anyway. It was quiet. You had people, whole communities, just gathering. In courtyards, down by the river, out in open fields, everyone under the same moon, sharing the same silence and the same
powerful, unspoken feeling of it's coming. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. Let's move from that big countrywide picture and look at the actual people who were there. Because if you looked into the faces in those crowds, you could see the whole story of a nation.
First, think about the elders. For them, wow, this was everything. The culmination of their entire lives. So many of them had been born under colonial rule and had never known anything different. So their quietness, it wasn't empty at all. It was heavy, filled with memories, with the weight of everything that had come before, and a real, deep understanding of what this change really, truly meant.
And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the kids. And this contrast is just perfect. They probably didn't get all the political stuff, right? But they absolutely understood the feeling. They could feel the energy. And they're holding these little flags. And they weren't just toys. They were holding on to symbols of a future that was going to be theirs. They were literally being born into a brand new world.
So much of the story of this night is about what you could see. But it's also about what you could hear. Or more accurately, what you couldn't hear. This silence, it wasn't a peaceful, sleepy kind of quiet. Not at all. It was tense. It was charged, just humming with potential energy.
And this is the perfect symbol for that feeling. The drums. They're so central to the culture, to celebration, to communication. But on this night, they were silent, just sitting there, ready. It's like they were a promise of the explosion of joy and sound that was coming, but it was being held back, just for a little while longer. The drums were waiting, just like everyone else.
So you get the picture, right? All this incredible energy, this quiet waiting, generations sitting side by side, everything was pointed toward one single moment. The entire country was holding its breath, but waiting for what? What was the moment? They were waiting for midnight. That's it. The exact moment the British flag would come down for the very last time and the Gambia would officially be an independent nation. And this was so much more than just some political ceremony. It was a complete shift in identity. It's like the air itself was thick with these huge, invisible forces. Emotions everyone could feel, but nobody could really grab onto.
In fact, the phrase that keeps coming up is this: the air was heavy. And that's just a perfect way to put it, isn't it? It means the feeling, the atmosphere, was so strong you could almost feel it on your skin, like a physical thing. This wasn't the weather. This was the actual weight of history, just moments away from being made.
And what was that heaviness made of? Well, it was really a mix of three massive, kind of competing emotions. First, there was so much hope for what they could build for themselves. But then, of course, there was also fear, a quiet worry about the unknown. What happens next? How do you build a nation from the ground up? And finally, just this powerful sense of destiny, a feeling that this was always meant to happen. It was inevitable. It was unstoppable.
And really, that's what it all comes down to. This one idea captures why everyone was waiting. Every single person, the quiet elders, the hopeful children, even the silent drums, they were all focused on one thing: being there. Being present for the exact second that the timeline of their world would pivot, and everything that came after would be different.
Single, incredibly powerful moment in time, all captured in just a few sentences from our source. It's really a story about a flag coming down and a whole nation rising up. So let's dive in. Every long journey has to end somewhere, right? Every story has that big climax. Well, for this nation, after generations of just waiting, that moment, it finally arrived.
But to really feel the weight of this moment, we have to go back and understand the journey that led up to it. This didn't happen overnight, not even close. It was a new reality forged over years and years of struggle and patience.
And those aren't just words. They're really the two sides of a long, long fight for freedom. Struggle, that's the active part, the fighting, the sacrifices. But patience, wow. That's the quiet, unbreakable hope that kept the dream alive, even when things looked their darkest. So you can see this isn't just a sequence of events. It's more like an emotional timeline. First, you had the struggle. Then, that long, difficult period of just waiting. And finally, you get to the eve, the night right before everything was about to change. You can almost feel the entire nation holding its breath. And now, we're there. We're at the ceremony itself. The air is just thick with anticipation. But what really defines this moment isn't noise or a big cheer. It's this deep, almost sacred silence. Try to picture it.
The symbol of an entire era, the Union Jack, starts its slow journey down. It's not being torn down in anger or anything like that. It's being lowered with this deliberate, solemn respect. And every single eye in that crowd is following it down. And in that one moment, it's like thousands of people become one. A heavy, total silence falls over everybody. But it's not an empty quiet. It's a shared moment of thinking about the history, the pain, and the hope that was all wrapped up in that one flag.
And this is a really crucial point from the source. It was not a moment of anger. It was a moment of remembrance, a quiet, dignified closing to a very long and very complicated chapter of their history. So as one chapter closes, another one begins. The whole energy shifts from reflection to hope. The old symbol disappears, and a new one gets ready to take its place, bringing with it the colors of a brand new dawn.
As soon as the old flag is out of sight, a new one begins to go up. It's such a powerful metaphor, happening right there in front of everyone. One history is setting, and another one is rising. That upward motion is just a clear signal of hope for what's to come. And this new flag, it carries the colors of a whole new identity. Red, blue, green, and white. Each color tells a piece of their story, all of it woven together to create a symbol of a new promise.
And as that flag reached the sky, the silence was finally broken. But not by shouts, by tears. The source says they flowed freely. And these weren't just happy tears. They were tears of release, the culmination of all those years of struggle and patience finally being let go.
This right here really gets to the heart of the whole transformation. The shift is from being owned to being free. That's such a fundamental change. It's the difference between being seen as a territory and being recognized as a people with their own destiny.
And that brings us to the ultimate declaration. See, the ceremony wasn't just a symbol. It was the confirmation of a new and permanent reality.
Just let that sink in for a second. With one simple act, a fundamental truth about their world was changed forever. The idea that this land could be owned by someone else was officially over. It was now in the past.
And in its place came a new reality. And it's captured in just 3 simple words that carried the weight of generations. It was free.
So, we're left with this thought. A flag is so much more than just a piece of colored cloth, isn't it? As the story shows, it can represent the past, the future, struggle, hope, ownership, and freedom.
When you think about the birth of a nation, with all the chaos and excitement and change, what's the one thing that really defines that moment? Is it a flag being raised? A document getting signed? Or could it be something quieter, something more human? Let's dig into that idea. So, the source material we're looking at today kicks off with this really striking image. It doesn't start with the roar of a crowd or some big, flashy event. Nope. It starts with a single, steady presence, a calm voice. And that right there just makes you lean in and ask, who did this voice belong to? And what on earth was the message that was so important, so powerful, that it could stand at the very center of a country's new beginning? Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Whose voice was it that managed to cut through all that noise? And here's our answer. The voice belonged to Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, a name that, as our source makes clear, is basically synonymous with a specific kind of leadership, one built on a very deliberate choice for peace, right at a moment when things could have gone in a totally different direction. So, what was his message? What did he have to say? Well, it wasn't just about celebrating being free. It was about what comes next. It was about what he called the dawn of responsibility. And boom, there it is. This one line just completely flips the script on the whole idea of freedom. See, for Jawara, independence wasn't some finish line you cross and then you're done. He saw it as the starting line for a much longer, much tougher race. A race that required a totally new kind of strength. And that, right there, is the core concept. The freedom they had just won, it wasn't a trophy to be polished and put on a shelf. It was a heavy mantle. It was a duty that now rested squarely on the shoulders of the people, a brand new and profound responsibility. And whenever you have a new responsibility like that, it always comes with a fundamental choice. Every new nation, every new movement, it stands at a crossroads. And the path you take in those first few moments, well, that can define your destiny for generations to come. Jawara didn't just let things happen. He didn't leave it up to chance. He stepped up. And he actively framed the options, making it crystal clear to everyone what was really on the line for their future. And this slide just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? The choice couldn't be more stark. You've got these two paths. On one side, the path that so many others have taken, violence and division. But the path chosen, the one championed by that calm voice, was the path of peace and unity. This wasn't an accident, it was a deliberate, principled decision. Okay, so you've chosen a path. But that leads to the next big question, right? Because picking a direction is one thing, but having the right tools to actually walk that path is something else entirely. So what was the method going to be for protecting this new nation? I mean, this is the essential challenge for any free people. Once you have freedom, how do you hold on to it? What are the real tools you need to defend it? And here we go again. We see that same powerful choice laid out for us. The rejected tool? Weapons. The instruments of force. But the chosen tool? Wisdom. The instrument of foresight, of understanding. It's a whole philosophy that values what's in your head over what's in your hands. So all of this choice of path, this choice of tools, it's all building toward one final enduring message, a principle so clear and powerful that it's really the bedrock of his entire way of thinking. It starts with a simple, undeniable truth. Freedom isn't something that just takes care of itself. It's fragile. It needs constant watching. It has to be actively guarded. Okay, but how? And there it is, the punchline, the culmination of his entire message. The ultimate defense, the strongest shield you can have for your liberty, isn't found in an armory. It's found in the minds and the hearts of the people. Freedom must be guarded not with weapons, but with wisdom. And, that idea, that's not just for one country at one specific moment in history. That's a timeless principle. It's a challenge, really, to any society, anywhere, at any time that claims to value its own freedom. And that brings it all right back around to us, doesn't it? Right here and right now. This whole idea leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. In our own lives, in our own communities, when we think about protecting the things we hold dear, which tool are we reaching for? Is it weapons or is it wisdom?
Sometimes it just takes one night, a single moment in time to completely forge a new identity for an entire country.
It all really kicks off with this one line. Just think about that. On that night, the Gambia became one. We're not just talking about a country on a map here. We're talking about a people, a community, feeling so connected they became a single entity. This sentence really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore.
So how does that even happen? How does an entire nation start to share a single heartbeat? What would that even feel like? Well, let's try to understand that powerful feeling together.
What happened here was so much more than just a big gathering. It was a real, deep, human connection. I mean, just try to imagine it, an entire population all feeling the exact same hope, all focused on the exact same purpose, at the exact same time. It's like a shared pulse, a collective soul, all moving in perfect sync.
And you know what's truly remarkable? It's who was there, who was part of this moment. This wasn't just one group or another, it was a true cross-section of the entire nation, standing right there, side by side, and just letting all those lines that usually divide people dissolve.
So on this night, you had Muslims and Christians praying right next to each other. They weren't praying for separate things, but for one single shared future. I mean, that's a kind of unity that goes way beyond just tolerating each other. It's something much deeper.
And it was the same thing with social status. You had the farmer, the person who works the earth with their hands, standing as a total equal with the scholar, who works with ideas. All those usual distinctions, class, profession, they just kind of melted away. They were all on shared ground, together.
And what about age? Well, you had the wisdom of the elder standing right there alongside the incredible energy of the youth. It's this amazing picture, right? The past and the future completely united by one single shared hope in that very moment.
So here's the key takeaway. It was everybody. Women, men, elders, youth. Every single part of the nation was there. Every voice was part of this one big chorus. This wasn't some small movement. This was the single heartbeat of an entire people.
Now, this incredible unity, it wasn't just some emotional high. No, it was a fundamental shift in the entire nation's journey. This was the beginning of a future that was, for the very first time, completely and totally their own. Just let that sink in for a second. This line, it just captures the whole spirit of independence, doesn't it? It's that feeling when the pen is finally in your hands and you, and only you, get to write the next chapter of your own story.
And there's actually a term for this. It's called self-determination. Now, it might sound like a complicated political idea, but really, it's that exact moment when a people collectively look around and realize they have the power to take full ownership of their own destiny. That is exactly what was happening in the Gambia on that night.
And all of this brings us to this final, really powerful idea that I think just perfectly captures the essence of this whole story.
Because, you see, if you look at it on a map, the Gambia is a small country. But on that night, its strength was absolutely immeasurable. And that contrast, right there, is the whole point. It shows you that the true power of a nation isn't found on a map. It's found in the unified hearts of its people.
So we're kind of left with this big question to chew on. If it's not about the size of your land or how much money you have, then what is the true measure of a nation's strength? Maybe, just maybe, as this story shows us, it's the ability of its people to come together and share one single, mighty heartbeat.
You know, sometimes a single moment in history can tell you everything you need to know about a massive idea. We're going to dive into one of those moments today, a night of incredible celebration, and find a really profound and honestly a pretty demanding truth hidden right inside it. And trust me, this isn't just about one country's independence, it's about what freedom itself really truly means.
So, let's go there. Picture it. The clock is ticking towards midnight. The energy, the anticipation, it's just electric. You have to remember, for generations, this was the exact moment people had dreamed of, fought for, and waited for.
And then it happens. Midnight strikes, and this incredible wave of sound just washes over the entire land. And it's not just noise, right? These are songs of pure joy, of relief, of hope for the future. It's the sound of a people finding their voice all at once.
And under all that singing, you can hear this deeper rhythm, this ancient pulse of drums, connecting everyone there, connecting the past to this brand new present. It felt like a declaration, not just to the world, but all the way up to the stars.
And this is what it was all for. Right then and there, with the songs and the drums as a witness, a new nation was officially born. A line was drawn in time. There was a before, and now there was an after. Just an absolutely monumental achievement.
So, what did they actually win at that moment? Well, it's this word, sovereignty. It's a big word, but it just means the supreme authority to govern yourself, to make your own decisions, to chart your own course, to be the master of your own destiny. That was the prize.
But that leads to a really powerful question, doesn't it? I mean, celebrations end. The party's over, the sun comes up on day one. And in that quiet morning, a whole new reality sets in. What does freedom actually look like when the celebration stops? And what's so fascinating here is that the answer wasn't some big mystery they had to figure out later. Nope. Even in that moment of absolute triumph, right in the middle of the party, the people already understood something incredibly important.
And this is it. Freedom is not given once. It must be earned every day. Just let that sink in for a second. This incredible moment of independence, it wasn't the finish line they had just crossed. It was the starting line of a race that was never going to end.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Think about it. A gift is something you just get. It's passive. You receive it. But a responsibility, that's something you have to actively carry. The people understood that independence wasn't some gift handed down to them. No way, it was a profound responsibility that they were now choosing to pick up and carry themselves.
So you can kind of see this journey in two parts. Part one is that amazing moment, the ceremony, the flag going up, all of it. That's the moment of independence. But part two is every single day after that. It's the constant, daily work of making sure that the promise of that first moment stays alive.
Exactly. The party is over. The confetti is swept up, and now you've got the keys to the house. You have to figure out how to run it, how to protect it, and how to make it a real home for everyone inside. The real work was only just beginning.
So what does this daily work actually look like in practice? Well, it has a name. It's called nation building. And it's the really tough, practical, day in, day out process of turning the idea of a country into a functioning reality. It's about building a sense of us. And here's the key takeaway. This work, this nation building, it wasn't something that came after freedom was achieved. It was the first act of freedom. The very first thing you do with your new sovereignty is roll up your sleeves and start the hard work of building a nation worthy of it. And if you were to write it down, this would be the to-do list for day one. and for every day after that. Number 1, how do we forge a shared identity? How do we build stable things like courts and schools and governments that are fair and that actually last? And maybe most important of all, how do we uphold that original promise of freedom for every single person, every single day?
And that really brings us right back to today. You know, the drums from that Gambian midnight have been silent for a long time, but that core idea, man, it is more relevant than ever. This isn't just history. It's a living question for all of us, no matter where we are, because that work of earning freedom, it never ever stops. So the question is, what does that work look like for us right now?
You know, some stories aren't written in books. They're carried in the landscape itself, in the soil, the trees, and in this case, the steady flow of a river. So today, we're going to dig into how a short poetic text uses the Gambia River to tell the incredibly powerful story of a nation's journey to freedom. Okay, let's dive right in. The whole thing really kicks off with this one simple, powerful image. The source material isn't just talking about a river. It's presenting it as a living witness, a constant presence that has literally watched the nation's entire history unfold. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack how just a few poetic lines use this river to connect the Gambia's past struggles with its present reality. Let's start with how the text even sets up this connection in the first place. Right off the bat, you see this amazing parallel being drawn. It creates a direct line from a single pivotal moment in the past, that historic night, all the way to today. And what's the thread connecting them? The river. It was there then, and it's here now. So what exactly does this river remember from that night? What kind of memories is it carrying in its current? Well, the source doesn't just leave us guessing. It spells it out for us, very, very specifically. And this is where it gets really interesting. The river's memory, it's not just some vague, flowery idea. The text defines it as something almost tangible, something made up of the core elements of the nation's struggle for freedom. And here they are, the 3 core elements the river remembers: sacrifice, unity, and hope. I mean, think about that. These aren't just abstract words. They represent the real human cost, the coming together of a people, and that incredible forward-looking vision that defined that moment and still flows in the nation's consciousness. All right, so from here, we see how this memory isn't just stuck in the past. It actually transforms into this living, breathing legacy. And it's a legacy that gets renewed actively every single year on one very specific day. And that's the thing. The source takes these huge ideas, right? Sacrifice, unity, hope, and it anchors them to a single concrete date, the 18th of February. This day becomes the focal point for the entire national story, a day for remembrance and for reflection. Now, this is where the language is just so deliberate and so powerful. It doesn't say freedom was given or that peace just happened. No, it emphasizes that these were things that were actively achieved. They were the result of deliberate action. First up, freedom was earned. Man, that phrase packs a punch, doesn't it? It speaks to struggle, to effort, to the incredible price that was paid for liberty. It's a powerful reminder that this freedom is valuable precisely because it came at such a great cost. And then we get the second truth. Peace was chosen. This is absolutely key. It suggests that peace isn't just, the default state when there's no fighting. It's an active, conscious decision. It's a choice that has to be made and remade every single day. But just when you think you've got the whole picture, the source does something brilliant. It doesn't leave us in the past or even in the present. It pivots dramatically, pointing us straight towards the horizon, to the journey that's still unfolding. So after looking back at that earned freedom and that chosen peace, we're left with one final and maybe the most crucial reminder of all. It's really a statement about potential and about responsibility. And there it is. That one line changes everything, doesn't it? It takes this beautiful historical reflection and turns it into a forward-looking call to action. It says the story isn't over. The sacrifices of the past and the choices of the present have created this open space of possibility. The final chapter hasn't been written yet. And that's where the source leaves us, with this incredibly powerful unspoken question. By saying the future is still being written, it's like it's passing the pen from the river, from history, directly into the hands of the living. It turns this national story into a personal reflection, asking every single one of us, what part will you play in writing what comes next?